Again, my name is Allison Eigsti, and I'm based out of Louisville. And today I'll be presenting my capstone project called The Color Playground. So, a little bit about me. My background is in psychology and foreign language learning. And I was looking to have a career change about a year ago. And this was around the same time that I had my first contact with coding. And I was really surprised to learn that my experience foreign language learning really lent itself to learning programming languages as well in a kind of surprising way. Um, so over this past year, I have been really excited to dive into HTML, CSS, JavaScript, as well as Python and a little bit of Django with CS50's web development with Python and JavaScript course. Um, I plan to continue my studies next year, actually moving to Spain for a one year long master's program in web and graphic design. But after that, I plan to move back to Louisville and continue my job search. So a little bit about the Color Playground. It's a fully responsive digital tool for artists and designers, or really anybody who's interested in learning more about color theory. I designed it using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Node.js, and Express.js, as well as I integrated a third-party API through Web AIM, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. And I also used Adobe Illustrator to make the vector graphics, as you can see right here, for example. So I got the idea for the Color Playground while I was reading this book called Interaction of Color by an artist named Joseph Albers. And his teachings around color were pretty revolutionary for the time. He really focuses on how colors change based on your perception of them, based on a lot of factors, including the other colors that are around a specific color. And his teaching is very practical too. So this book is just full of exercises that the reader can do. And he recommends doing them with colored slips of paper. But as I was reading the book, I didn't have colored slips of paper lying around. So I did what anybody would do and got on Google and tried to find a digital tool, but I didn't find anything for free. So I wanted to make a digital tool that would allow the user to experiment with two of his most famous exercises. So here is a quick demonstration of the two exercises I decided to include. The first one is a challenge to make one color look like two colors. So when the page is loaded, a random color is generated for the two smaller squares, and the user can change the background of the two larger squares in order to try to make the two purples in this example look like different shades of purple. You can also refresh colors if you want to repeat the exercise. And going to exercise 2, it's basically the same thing, just reversed. So the two smaller squares are slightly different shades of the same color. And the goal is to make those look the same, or at least look more similar than before. And this one is a little bit harder than the first exercise. As you can see, I'm attempting it here. Another feature of my website is a tool for creating custom color palettes. And this can be really helpful for artists or designers when they're in the planning process to pick out different color combinations that they might like and save it to come back to later. And I use local storage to save the user's color palettes. So if the user closes the browser and comes back to it, they should be able to see their saved palettes. However, in the future, I would like to build out my own API to store the color palettes in a JSON file. So when a palette is saved, the user is redirected to their color palette library. And I dynamically update the color palettes so that the most recent one is displayed at the top. And the drop-down menu is also updated with the new palette title so the user can easily navigate to a specific color palette just by clicking on the title in that drop-down menu. The user can also delete or edit their color palette right from the library page. And if the user clicks on the Check Palette Accessibility button, the selected palette is then loaded onto a new page. And this is where I implemented the API. It's a color contrast checker API. So I decided to include this because I think it's really important for web designers to think about accessibility so that the website is easy for all folks to navigate, including people that might have some color blindness or sight loss. So the way this works is that two colors are able to be selected and then sent to the API, and the user will then receive the results back to see if their colors passed the color contrast ratio check or not. So the API determines the degree of contrast between the two colors. And the results are then updated and the results box is styled dynamically. All right. So I also included a hamburger menu to make the design responsive and user-friendly at smaller screen sizes. And here you can see this is what it looks like when it is opened up. Thank you all so much for your time. If you'd like to contact me, here's my information, or if you want to learn a little bit more about the code, here's my GitHub. And as I am about to move abroad, the best way to get in touch with me will either be through email or through LinkedIn. Thank you all so much.
What a fun and useful project, Allison. I really like it. So I know you do have a background in Spanish, and I'm wondering how that sort of lends itself to learning to code.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of similarities between learning foreign languages and learning programming languages. What was helpful for me was to first kind of get a general sense of the language. So learning the syntax, and this can apply to like grammar structures in a spoken language or the syntax of a programming language. And then I also noticed a lot of parallels between verbs and methods and functions because it kind of represents like a change of state. And so when I'm learning a foreign language, at the beginning, I try to learn, say, like 20 of the most common verbs. And as I was learning JavaScript, it was helpful to start learning the most common array methods or string methods to just give yourself the building blocks. And then I would say trying to put that to the side and just jump into it. I think it's super important when learning a language to get out there and have conversations and mess up and be embarrassed and learn from it. And then in the same way, I think that motivated me to start practicing with code almost from day one, even when I just knew how to make a div, really. But just starting from the very beginning and having contact with the language every day.